Do you know who's most important to you in any negotiation or high stakes situation? You may be surprised, but stay right where you are. Hey, I am so happy that you're here today. And this is like one of these concepts I want to talk to you about today is something that I have really leaned on a lot. And it was an aha for me that really has changed the dynamic for me in a negotiation. And it's all about having faith in the past self, your past self, and letting them be the one that makes the decision in real time. And what I mean is, we talk about in negotiation, in high stakes situation, the PACE framework: prepare, aware, close, and evaluate. And prepare is the most important aspect of the negotiation by far. It helps you get really clear. It's where you need to spend time, especially as it's higher stakes. The more time you should spend really preparing. It allows you to engage other people to make sure that you're making sound decisions, choices. You're thinking way outside the box. You're considering the interests of the other party. There's so many things to explore and prepare. And the reason that trusting your past self is such a nuance that is so powerful is because when you're preparing, this is the way I look at it. That past self is the one that is making the decision for your current self. Your current self is the person that's facing the tough, high stakes situation. So your past self is the one that's making the decisions for your current self that's facing that. Because no matter what, negotiation, high stakes situation, difficult conversations, they all evoke emotion in us. And a lot of times it's nerves, it's apprehension, it's fear, it's things we don't want to face. And so the more that we can get really clear, our past self can get as clear as you can about what you want and make decisions for your future self and depend on those decisions, it can allow you to be really objective in the moment. And once I learned that and I really think about it, I literally, when I'm really nervous, I will tell myself that my past self knows that this was going to happen. I knew I was going to think of every excuse in the book to turn away, to not do it. When I hear the subtleties of, oh, it's not a good time right now, they're not in a good headspace, all those things, when those thoughts that can get in my way, that I start to the nuances to negotiate with myself, my past self during prepare had given my current self ready for that. And so those signals don't get in my way. I go with the plan. And so I'm going to talk to you today about what are those things, those key areas that you really need to be clear on. You have to let your past self, meaning the person that's in the prepare stage, make for you, be really clear about what those are so that when you're there and you become even more triggered or something surprises you, you have a plan that you go back to. It's the same as if, the research shows that a lot of times, especially women, the research around women says that we are better to advocate for our team or for somebody else. We get like, I'm going to fight for them, but we aren't so much for ourselves. So if we can think of this other personality, our past self, the one that made the choices for us, if we can really depend, like we are negotiating for that persona that's not in the current time. So that past self had made those decisions so that in that moment we can be like, I'm advocating for that past self. I made these decisions for that Susie. And these are my non-negotiables. And that's why preparing and being really clear about what you want, understanding and being honest about those non-negotiables. What are you going to walk away? Getting really clear about that and even thinking through, what is it going to feel like to walk away? If I don't get this, I'm going to literally have to say, maybe even plan for, hey, I wish you could have given me that piece, but that is something that is my walk away. And so I really appreciate this time. I appreciate all the work that you've put into this. I know that you really want to, but that's a non-negotiable for me. And so thank you. I hope we can still be friends or whatever that relationship is, and literally plan how you're going to frame that and then stand up and walk away. but you have to be really clear on that and know what that is for you. And your past self is the one that's making those choices for you. So I'm going to try to bring this to life a little bit for you through a couple examples of how I've used this in my experiences as an executive, as a negotiator in real life situations. So stay right where you are, but I want you to really be thinking about, where do you need to use this concept of, when you're in the moment before and being really clear about where you're going, how you're going to shift back in that mindset of that past self so that in the moment you stay true to what that person wanted you to achieve. So stay right where you are. We'll be right back. It's me. Thought I'd tell you how excited I am about this collection of courses I have available. It's all around the concept of adopting a negotiator mindset. And the only way to do that is to really understand what it's like to be a negotiator so that you can practice it in your everyday. I'm excited about this project because it's going to allow people to do this on their own time and go through the course at their own pace. If you want to learn more, go to SusieTomanchuck.com. I'd love for you to check it out. So I have so many examples of how I've used this, because this has been the thing. Thinking about my past self and making decisions for my future self has been something that has really helped me in some tough, uncomfortable situations. So the first one that came to mind for me was, I was going to resign for at a company that I really liked them a lot. They were so good to me, and I liked them a lot, and they had no idea I was resigning. And there was no discussion about it. I was going to do it, and I needed to do it with the partner at the firm. And I knew it was going to be emotional for me. And I knew that I would want to not do it. And I didn't really have a choice not to do it, because I was going to leave and go to this other job, but it still was difficult for me to go in, and I had to. So I went into the office. I didn't really meet this guy very often, and it was actually before COVID. So he had his own office and was always there most of the time, but I wasn't always in the office. And so I didn't want to put an appointment on his calendar. I didn't want to signal that anything was going to happen. But so I texted him before I came in. That was my plan. And I said, "Hey, I need to talk to you for a few minutes. Can I catch you at 1 o'clock?" And he said, "Sounds good." And so I get there, and he's not there. And he had been at a lunch and he was running late. And his assistant said, "He's at a lunch. He'll be coming." He didn't think anything of it, because he just thought it was just one of those regular meetings that we were going to have. It wasn't urgent for him. But I couldn't tell anybody else that was in the hallway. I had to really keep it to myself. And I was so nervous that I couldn't control, like, my body was so nervous that I was just walking and I was pacing up and down the hallway. And I just remember telling myself, I know this is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because you feel bad because you're leaving this company. You're kind of breaking their heart, and you love them or really care about them. And so that's why this is so difficult for you. But you need to do this, and you can't talk to anybody else. It would have been easier for me to pull somebody else in and tell them what was going on, but I needed to be really true to my plan and tell him. And so by the time he got there, I was so wound up. I was completely wound up. But because I had known that I was going to be, I told myself in that moment, and this was my plan, was try to think about keeping all the emotion in my body and pushing it down the body, and keep my head clear. And what is your plan, Susie? And so I would keep going back to, how am I going to frame this? Why is it important to what I say to him? What are the things that I'm going to tell him? How I'm going to undo the deals that I was working on? How I was going to offboard? That was what I was looking for. Offboard, so that he would feel like I was doing this the right way. And I also wanted to be prepared for his counter, which he ended up countering me and trying to get me to stay. But anyway, that was, I stayed to what my plan was. And I knew that I wasn't planning on staying no matter what he offered, because this opportunity was something that I was already planning on doing. So being very clear really helped me in the moment keep my emotion down so that my head could be as clear as possible, and also being prepared for the fact that he was going to counter and make me an offer I actually wasn't expecting. He offered me some equity in the company, which I didn't even know was an opportunity. And so it was just really interesting to me because that was surprising to me. So that was one that came to mind really easily. And then another one that I thought about was one time we were doing a deal with a vendor deal, and we were going to be the client. And one of the things that no, we were the vendor. Sorry. We were the vendor and they were going to be the client. And in this situation, they could use various clients or various vendors for the same service. And one of the walkaways that we had was that they had to use us exclusively. And that was something that was not done. That was not a precedent that was set. And so they were very surprised by it. They were not happy about it, but and I liked the person on the other side. I really wanted to work with them. We had worked with them, but this was a deal breaker for us. And it was more because the fact that because we were both serving them, it became a conflict of interest for us. And so it was something that it was a legal issue that we couldn't get around, that we couldn't have them work with both of us. And I couldn't tell them all that. So walking away and having a plan without explaining it to the other party is really hard. But I just said to him, I said, I know if there's nothing you can do about working with both us, company A, and them, company B, that's a non-starter for us. And I really wish it wasn't, but that is something that we can't get around. That's a non-negotiable for us. I really want to stay friends. I would love to help you in any way I can as a network connection. So let's make sure we stay in touch. But thanks so much for everything. And I really appreciate it. And I walked away. But had I not had that plan and really being clear about what is my walk away, it would have been harder for me to face him and not be able to cave, really, because I really cared about him. I had a good excuse, not a great excuse, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But to him, but for me, having that clarity around, I'm just gonna have to walk, and it's too bad, but it's not you, it's me, and I hope we can still be friends. So thinking about your past self is the one that's your decision maker. There's so much power in it because in that moment, you never know what's going to happen. And surprise is one of the things, even a question that we're not expecting, it gets us cloudy. So the more that we can tease out, really understand, and have a clear plan about, and even thinking about in that moment, this was my plan, I'm sticking to it, is super powerful to then let go of that decision making that you need to make in the moment, because you're not always the best person in that current situation when there's a lot going on, when you become triggered, when you're not thinking clearly. That makes you not the best decision maker. And that's why your past self is so powerful, to really engage and think about, how do I leverage that in a way that's going to help me in the moment make decisions even if I'm not clear headed. So when I come back, I'll give you 3 tips that I use to deploy this and to make sure that are the things that I need to have clarity around, so that that current self can really continue on and have that state of mind that it's okay, I am making the right choices because my trusted past self has made them for me. We'll be right back. Hey, Susie here. Thought I'd pop in. I wanted to let you know I've been an executive coach for over a decade. I work with executives and they call me their silent partner because I help them increase their confidence when they're facing really difficult decisions. If you'd like to see if we're a good fit, head over to susietalmanchuck.com and fill out an application. I'd love to hear from you. All right, so 3 tips to think about what you need to decide for your past self. So I know this is like hard to explain because I'm really talking about your current self, but the person before you get into the negotiation. That's your decision maker. That's the person that is making the decisions, so you make no decisions in the moment. That's the point. So my first tip is to get really clear about what's important to you. Do not leave any murkiness for yourself. Think about all of the aspects possible when I think about leverage and pulling all, brainstorming, bringing people in. What's important to you? Why is it important? What can they give me? What have other past people have? What have they gotten? What research can I do? Understand what's important to you and what is possible. Get as clear as you can. The higher stakes the situation, especially if it's a one-time opportunity or it's just something that's really important to you, then that's the when you have to spend as much time as possible really considering this. And if it's high stakes for you, bring in other people to help you. See what you can find out about how other people have gotten what they wanted in this environment, if that's applicable. Who can help you see it from a lot of different angles? Who can help you get really clear about what's important to you? That is my first tip, is to get really clear about that to the point that you write it down. You prioritize them. You decide these are the three things that if I don't get them, then that's going to be the decision point, or the five things. And be really clear with yourself that these are the things I need to get, and I'm not going to walk away unless I get them. That clarity is key. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is, while it's being clear, part of that clarity is being really okay with your walk away. And this is not a bluff situation. You have to really understand what your walk away is. And so what I mean by that is, to get that clarity is, what if your walk away is a certain number? And say you currently make 120 and that's your walk away. And so if they can't get you to that number, then that's it. And maybe there's different contingencies, like, health benefits and how much they pay for that, or how much they give to your 401k. That's why you have to be really clear about all those nuances. And if I don't get this, but I get this, you got to have that clarity. But understanding that if you don't get these two things along with this level, I'm going to walk away. And the reason you have to be okay with that, so that your past self is making that decision for you, is that if you stand up and walk away and they don't stop you, that's okay. The clearer that you can get with what would be amazing and you would jump for joy to get, and that walk away, is key to making sure you don't get a negotiator hangover. It's that what if thing. So when you're really clear about that walk away and you walk out that door and you even think about how you're going to frame it, like I said, then be okay with that, and even picture yourself standing up and what are you going to say? How are you going to frame it to them? I really appreciate this. I know I wish this wasn't the thing that I have to walk away, but if I don't get this number, it's a no deal for me. And I want us to stay in touch, but I'm going to walk away, and really thinking about what that's going to look like. So that's my second tip. And my third tip is to anticipate the emotion that you're going to feel, because you're going to feel more than you realize. So at least acknowledge that if you're going to get nervous, maybe you're going to be apprehensive, maybe you're going to all of a sudden think maybe this isn't the right day, you're going to have excuses, you are going to feel horrible. It's hard also when you're going to evoke an emotion in somebody else. Like for me, surprising that person by telling them I'm resigning, that is an emotion I had to watch him go through. And then he went through kind of being mad at me about it. And so, like, understanding that that's going to be hard for me to watch because it was somebody I cared about. So it's the emotion that you need to anticipate that you're going to go through. And like I said, what I do is, okay, there's that emotion. I'm going to push it down in my body, but I'm still going to stick with what my past self had decided I was going to do. And then being able to go, okay, I knew they were going to get upset. This is not unexpected. This was new news to them. And being able to say to yourself, I'm still staying with the plan that my past self made, even though this is hard for me to watch this person go through this, but know that they're going to go through this. And a lot of times people use anger and frustration as a reaction. But even when I see those things, I try to not understand them or feel them for them. I try to just acknowledge it in my head, because when I know that they have to go through that, it's not like I kind of try to make myself understand that it's not me, it's the situation they're frustrated with. And so that I don't go away from the plan that my past self put together. So my 3 tips are being clear about where you're going, spending the time to get that clarity, getting help to get that clarity. The second is understanding your walkaway, have a plan for your walkaway, and it better be you're true to it. It's not a bluff. It's when you really are going to walk away. What is that for you? And have a plan around it. And then the third is to acknowledge your emotion and the emotion on the other side and what that's going to feel like in the moment so that you can identify it and say, okay, I was expecting this. I still need to stick to the plan of my past self. So this has been such a game changer for me just to be thinking about that is I'm sticking with the plan that I laid out, and this is what I want. So when we come back, I wanted to really challenge you to think about what are you going to do differently? Which one of these are you going to start, stop, or continue doing? And put something in action for you. It's one thing to talk about this, it's another thing to actually make a change, and we're shifting every single day. So, what are you going to do after listening to this? We'll be right back. Hi, Susie here. One of the things that I love is I facilitate team conversations, whether it's talking about high stakes, how to advocate for one another. So if you're a leader and you want to bring your team together, you want to level them up, help them really bond together and increase their confidence as a whole, contact me. Go to SusieTomachuk.com, tell me a little bit about your team, and I'll be in touch. All right, this is where the rubber hits the road, as I always say. As an executive coach, it's not about just the concepts. It's about how am I going to apply them now? So when I was thinking through this, I want you to think through this too. Like in thinking about this concept, what are you going to stop doing? For me, stop doing is I am so in tune to the person that's in front of me that I do adjust to their emotions and I almost change my response because I'm so in tune to theirs. So when I said that out loud, I was like, oh, I got to do that more. I got to stop allowing myself to always be triggered by their response. So I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to start using this in every situation that I go into, meaning like I always do this with negotiations and I always really picture myself as that past self. So I'm going to really start in high stakes situations, really putting that persona as like a different person. I think that would even give me more strength. So I'm going to start envisioning myself as this really strong past self that I'm negotiating for, because I think that will really bring this even more to light for me. And then I'm going to continue to get really good at I can thinking about when my emotions get in my way, when I'm triggered and pushing it into my body so I can stay really clear. That's been such a differentiator for me. And I get better and better at it all the time. And I'm going to really continue to do that. So what are you going to stop, start, or continue? What's important to you so that you can really hone this past self of yours and get really clear about what's important to you in the future and do what I said about making that a persona of somebody and maybe even the person that helps you, think about them, you're negotiating for them, if that is helpful to you to really get what you want. That leverage of your past self is so key to making sure that you stick to the plan that past self has put together for you because they have your very best interests in mind. So I'd love to hear your stories. How have you used this idea of your past self to help you in the current situation? I'd love to hear your stories and share your wisdom with me as I continue to learn about what works for me through what your experiences are as well. Feel free to connect with me. You can always go to negotiationlove.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you know somebody that needs to hear this or you found this interesting, please share it. It'd be just such a acknowledgement of that this is helpful because my whole mission is to making sure that I'm doing something that is really expressing this adopting a negotiator mindset because I think it's so powerful. So with that, don't forget that negotiation is more than a skill, it's a mindset. So until next time, I will see you then.